They say a picture is worth 1,000 words, which means that a word is worthless in today's visual marketplace. And now people are always saying things like an eye for an eye, or look, there's another one of those great monstrous shutterbugs. There is only one way to deal with such a disadvantaged economy as the written word: exist in a language for which there are only 3 million readers. Such is the plight of Niels Frank, whose mother tongue is Danish, a language that did indeed plunder English thousands of years ago in subtle ways. For example, we all live in what we call houses, and this is a gift from the Danes. In one such house here in Toronto, there lives a man by the name of Roger Greenwald, and he has translated En V by Niels Frank from Danish into a great-looking book called Picture World that might actually be worth more than your average words. Please welcome Roger Greenwald, who will read from Picture World by Niels Frank.
Thank you all for coming, and thank Jay. Thanks to Jay for making this book happen. This is a book-length poem in 24 parts. I'm going to read parts 2, 14, and 15. 2. Let me try again, as concretely as possible, as concrete as, well, a dozing, dusty street in Naples where you've never been. But believe me, it's the most concrete place in the world. Everything behind you is memory loss, everything in front of you a brand new theory of the self. All of it is symbolized by alleys that have cut their way through harbor districts, leaving behind ravines filled with cardboard boxes, bulging garbage bags. Laundry drying on lines like the flags of unknown families, a snarling moped with 2 guys wrapped around each other, speeding recklessly through life. Seeing that makes me so happy. I'm going at a reckless speed myself, wrapped around whomever, cavorting through Naples. For remember, no one needs to put up with the first life that comes along, which is never good, which is a shitty life, if you understand. Remember, if you lifted up all of Naples, a wonderful pattern would appear in the dry soil. That's the pattern you should look for, not the city, not me, wrapped around my desire, not the first life, the other one, the better one. Remember, a street always has 2 directions, at least, 2 possibilities, at least. And remember, when a woman is trudging up the steps in an alley in Naples, lost in the shade, she is stepping out of one picture and into another. That's the only way to move around, to visit yourself somewhere in life. Actually, it's so simple. Simple, simple, simple. You're always at home, always and forever at home. You can hang your mirrors on the stained walls and your paintings and decorative plates and have a TV running day and night tuned to sports. Applause continually roars. All colors sluggishly curdle, turn white, but a black point goes scurrying around until it has blackened everything. Believe me, I've seen it myself. Many times. It scurries around, around and around. And once you've noticed that furious point, you can't stop tracking it, even if your eyes roll back. I see that it's 7:35 in the evening on Broadway. How time flies. I miss you constantly, the face with the fateful signs seems to say. Fateful, as if the clock were a wheel of fortune. Fateful, constantly searching for truth, if you understand my slightly poetic language. If. It says, as far as the eye can see, red masks are hanging on metal racks all the way down Broadway. Oh, traffic lights. Now you understand. Traffic lights. Well, of course. And what do the red lights say? They say, may not pass. So I keep standing there firmly in the wind between the high rises with a fly on my shoulder. Brighter times must be on the way, for Christ's sake. At Yolanda and Jose and Little Ed's in California, a layer cake is put on the table, as if time had suddenly decided to celebrate itself. Clots of whipped cream spread out over the cake like mold on happiness, and in the middle of this pale happiness, you see the strawberries, small sugary kisses. More red masks. But I told you so. You have to choose the right signs if you want to know the truth. If. Underneath are strata of chocolate and custard, more truth. What you seek is what you find, not the other way around, if you seek at all. If. In the pictured world, happiness is capricious, and happiness is harmonious, and so on. Happiness is as enticing as hell. I have seen it many times, but you have not. When the rich drive up and down Broadway in their coffin-like limousines, and the tourists gape, and the ad men wave with loose wrists at the cuffs of shiny shirts. I remember I dreamt of having just one day alone in New York, without the newspaper's endless supplements that you forget an hour later, without stockbrokers and hopeful young artists and the homeless. One day, but that day never came. And so what? What I get is what I dream, not the other way around, if I dream at all. If. Alas, how capricious and fortuitous and so on fate is at this very moment when clocks and layer cakes are melting in the big cities like out-of-place fata morganas, a glittering of the three fates up in the blue. In this picturing world, inside the pictured world, they make a perfect rhyme, the clock and the layer cake and the clock. You see it yourself at this God-forsaken moment, 7:35 in the evening, if you see anything at all. If. 15. Did I really say that? My slightly poetic language? That's priceless. Because poetry is not a language. I mean, as soon as it becomes a language, it's no longer poetry. Poetry, poetry, poetry. Or, as soon as words become poetry, they also become a language, and then they're no longer poetry, something like that. That's why I prefer the words before they've arranged themselves into poetry. I mean, before poetry has corrupted the words, before it rides their asses off. If I'm to interpret the call of the words, but not their calling, they say something like, what on earth is poetry now that it's not a language? Okay, if poetry is not a language, if, it may be a focusing within a vast field of blurs, and as soon as it begins to focus on a cactus or some flagstones propped up against each other in Berlin, on a splash in a swimming pool or breadcrumbs in bed, on traffic lights shifting from red to green at a deserted intersection, well, then what, actually? Then the thing we call a poem will emerge, I think, in the middle of this focusing. That's right, a poem. Poem, poem, poem. And then the poem will be to poetry what a snowflake is to a snowstorm. Each flake must be the eye of the snowstorm, because the snowstorm itself can't see anything. Sorry for making it so complicated, so corrupted. I just wanted to tell you that I'm alone most of the time. Alone, alone, alone. But I'm never all by myself. The poem is there, you know. And as always, the hardest thing is not to write the poem, but to get to the writing of it. To get to the poem is harder than anything. Trust me. To get to this tiny mountain built of breadcrumbs is inconceivably hard, and I respect its heights almost to the point of veneration, but I can climb it with my eyes closed. Now and then I sense that the poem has seen something. Now and then I grab a pen from the mug and write down the poem, almost as if I'd come along for a look. A look, not a vision. For the visionary, things and pictures are connected like Siamese twins. Not for me. Climbing the tiny breadcrumb mountain is for me not a struggle against the ice-cold wind or against wild animals or going snowblind. It's a struggle against the pictures, as if writing the poem were all about fighting the pictures. What does that mean? It means everything we have no picture of, everything that's without the least little glittering picture must be poetry. How simple it all is. How simple poetry, too. Thank you.